Think of how often adults say, "I just want my child to be safe." And behind those words hides 1,000 unspoken fears. Fear of poverty, failure, rejection, loneliness. And so safety becomes conformity, and conformity becomes obedience, and obedience becomes distance from self. And years later, that same child, now grown, sits in an office, in a relationship, or in a life that looks acceptable from the outside, but feels empty inside, wondering quietly, "How did I get here?" Without realizing that they learned very early how to silence their own inner voice in order to survive love. You may house their bodies but not their souls, because the soul does not live in yesterday or tomorrow. It lives in a place beyond your reach, a place you cannot enter even in your dreams. And this does not mean parents are unimportant. It means they are sacred in a different way. Not as sculptors of destiny, but as gardeners who prepare soil without deciding how the flower must grow, because no gardener pulls on a plant to make it taller, and no amount of control can replace sunlight, patience, and trust. We see this tension play out daily when parents panic as children grow independent, when opinions differ, when values shift, when distance appears, and rather than seeing this as life unfolding, it is experienced as betrayal, as loss, as disrespect. Because ownership was mistaken for love, and letting go feels like abandonment, when in truth it is the highest form of care, because love that cannot release eventually suffocates, and protection that cannot trust eventually becomes a cage. This teaching does not say love less, it says love differently. Love without possession, guide without control, care without fear, because fear is what turns love rigid, and rigid love breaks easily, while flexible love bends and endures. And perhaps the deepest wisdom here is not only about children, but about all relationships. Because how often do we treat partners, friends, or even ourselves as property, demanding that they remain consistent with who we once needed them to be, rather than allowing them to evolve into who life is asking them to become? And when they change, we say they are no longer the same, not realizing that change is the only sign of life itself. In daily life, this appears when a parent cannot accept a child's new beliefs, a new way of loving, a new way of seeing the world, and rather than listening with curiosity, responds with fear disguised as disappointment. And slowly conversation becomes avoidance, connection becomes politeness, and love becomes conditional silence. Not because affection disappeared, but because freedom was never made room for. Alan Watts often spoke of the universe as a process rather than a collection of things, and children are not things either. They are processes, unfolding expressions of the same mystery that moves stars, seasons, and breath. And when we